Perfect. So yeah, way better. So what is a meeting room? What do we want from meeting rooms? What are some of the key points when we install meeting rooms? What do we expect? What can we do from Microsoft? And what can we do from the different vendors on it? A short introduction. My name is Carsten Meilbak. I'm a Microsoft MVP. Presenters are here. I've been working with telephony for actually more than 25 years now. That's my background. And then when Microsoft went into that area, I changed to Microsoft. And after that, I began looking into meeting rooms and find that interesting. So now I'm pretty much 50-50 and meeting rooms. So everything around it. I'm married, have 2 kids. This is my home office, my playground, and it's actually not fully up to date. I got another area over here with another meeting room. I do a lot of testing and playing around with it. So my day-to-day role is that I'm consulting companies, finding the right solutions. So I don't sell any hardware, but I work closely with all manufacturers and, testing their stuff and so on. A lot of new stuff that are coming out, I have my input with it, with HP, with Yealink, with Jabra and so on. So, that's what I'm trying. And if you don't follow me on LinkedIn, there's a QR code there. I try to get some video out 3 or 4 times a month where I talk about a new Microsoft topic and not just, hey, whatever it is, but actually show how it works and do some live demos on it. So, and then we have horses in my family, so I'm writing a little. Again, all questions. I mean, we're not that many right now, so just feel free to interrupt and so on. It's much more fun when it's a dialogue instead of just me standing up and talking. Feel free to interrupt any questions and any wording or anything. I mean, I have an accent, so if there's something you don't understand, don't be embarrassed. I mean, just say, hey, what did you mean about that, Carsten? So do that. So let's start by saying what is a meeting room, because a lot of people are just thinking about this table we have in the middle and we have a monitor and then we have some chairs and so on. But today we define meeting rooms in totally different spaces, like out in a stand-up together in a corner of an office and like that. When we have the daily, what are we doing, what is the plan and so on. You can put on a Windows MTR like a top or something like that. You have a meeting room in there. We have the small mute boxes. They're really becoming popular. One you can sit 1 or 2 or 3 people in it, and it's totally isolated. Put a meeting room in there, all the equipment, so you can do that. So meeting rooms are all over the spaces, and I think actually it's fun when I go out to different companies to see where have they made a meeting room without even knowing intentionally that they've created a meeting room. It's fun to see how we're doing it, and especially this hybrid period we are. I promise it will probably be the only time I mention COVID, but after we get back for that, when we're hybrid and so on, we are just being creative and find different ways of actually creating meeting rooms. And what do we want for this one? Because now we have meeting rooms all over different places. They might not even be steady. It might be mobilized, so we can turn around and move them from one space to another. So what do we want from a management system? Sorry, that was good. We want something where it's easy to deploy devices. I mean, that's, I guess everybody can agree on that. We don't want to spend too much time with devices. We want zero-touch installation. And let's face it, a lot of people are talking about zero-touch installation. Not many can actually do it. I used to say that we can do it on Windows with Autopilot, but we cannot do it on Android yet. But we are working on a solution, and we can come very close to zero-touch. Then, of course, security, that's a high priority. I know a lot of meeting room people are, whatever, it's just a username and password and so on, but I think it's something that we really need to have focus on. I love when I'm getting out on new customers that go out, if there's a Windows device, SFB as the password, and 80% of all the time, I actually get into that device. So that's also a red flag. We want something that's focused on the security part, so we don't have default passwords and so on. We want firmware application updates, because, I mean, if you buy a new meeting room, it's been in the warehouse for 3 months or sometimes longer. I mean, it's manufactured with a legacy firmware already. So how do you do that? We don't want to take the device into the shop, power on, and do all the firmware and then ship it out. We want something where it's automatically happening. I mean, this is all what we want. I don't have a solution to all of it. Just easy mounting, cable management. That's also something. I mean, a manufacturer like Logitech, they're really mastering how to do cabling and so on. We want to look into something like that. If you see the new Jabra Pandacast BBS 40, where you have the boxes you can pre-mount and so on. So we want something where it's think out of the box to make it easy for us to do it. Then we have the configuration. We want it easy because, I mean, even though in my world we only have one system, Microsoft Teams, we still have some of the Zoom, we still have WebEx and so on. And a lot of the manufacturers support multiple devices. So how do we get a startup configuration where we don't have to touch anything or make the decision? Out of the box, Teams, Zoom, whatever, we click it. We don't want that. We want it to automate that. Because I think the last customers, I think we have 180 meeting rooms. We don't want to go click Teams 180 times just for that one. So that should be easy. We want to look into something if we have changes, because let's face it, Microsoft are adding more and more values into the room. So we need to test it. There comes different configuration changes. How do we do that easily? And least but not least, we have the firmware and application, and everybody knows that's a living hell. Where do you actually upgrade your firmware? What about your Teams app? What about when Microsoft are coming in ASP? What about now when they're looking into password lists? There's probably a firmware, some app that we need to upgrade in a controlled environment. So we also want something where that's possible to do that. And least but not least, we also want something where we can see. We don't want 10 different portals. We want one place where we can look into it. So any comment, anything I've missed, something pain you are having when you're rolling out meeting rooms? I think that's pretty much cover all of it. But that's what we really want. And we can do a lot of it, with Microsoft options. And when I submitted this session, I thought I've done this session many times before, just upgraded to new. And I thought, perfect, we do that. I don't know if you've seen into your tenant that Microsoft migrated from Teams Admin Center into Pro Portal with all the Android devices. In the beginning of the year, they did it with Windows. That's fully migrated. The problem is right now, as we stand today, this date, we are still doing all the Android stuff in Teams, so that Teams Admin Center. So that's what we'll talk about. I will try to explain as much as I know as public knowledge. How will the transformation be from TAG to PMP? And just so everybody's aware, TAG, that's Teams Admin Center. PMP, that's the Room Pro Management. So those will be the naming that Microsoft also uses. So TAG and PMP. You can see in the Teams Admin Center already that it's listed, hey, be aware that we are migrating and so on. So some of the steps, some of it official, and I hope I'm not telling too much. But right now the plan is that they're rolling out for the tab. And tab like people like me or Michael or something like that to get access. Then we have private preview. So if you have a lot of load on this one, get hold of your Microsoft account and say, hey, I would love to be in private preview with that journey, because then you are some of the picked out tenants. If you're conservative and you want to wait till everything is tested, just wait. After the private preview comes the public preview. Again, if you're not part of the private preview, make sure that you chip in and you're saying, hey, I want to see all the new functionality. If you just don't do anything, then after summer holidays, it will automatically be migrated over. So, but what we have been promised is that whatever configuration we are doing in Teams Admin Center right now, it will be migrated one-to-one as close as it's actually possible to do it. Meaning, that configuration profiles, I'll show that later, will be migrated one-to-one, because we don't have configuration profiles in the PMP right now. We have other ways of doing it. So what we've been told is step one is one-to-one migration, and step two is that all the nice functionality that we have for Windows devices will be the same for Android devices. So bear that in mind when we are talking about the different things that I'll show you Teams Admin Center, but the plan is that everything will be migrated over to PMP. So let's do a live demo, and as you probably saw, I was missing internet, and Michael was nice to do a share, so I'm hoping that everything is working as well here. fair enough, can everybody see and reach up on it? So this is the Teams Admin Center. And the main problem that moving into PMP is that you cannot differentiate rights. So, I mean, if you need to have access to everything in here, you need to be Teams admins. And we don't want that, because just because you need to work with the MTRs, you don't need to have access to all the rest of it. So that's one of the main reasons why we have a way better way of controlling management, who can do what. We can role-based everything, and we can role-base it down to devices. So we can say a European technician has access to this group of MTRs, a US technician have access to that one. We cannot do that in TAC. So, I mean, all that stuff is one of the main reasons we're migrating now. But as it is today, we have the Teams devices, and if you have any Windows, everything is migrated. It comes with the best Microsoft way of saying, hey, everything's moved out. Click here and you'll have a link out to the new platform. But still, we have everything on Android, and we have a nice list up here, and we can see everything. We can go in and get logs, we can get updates. One of the things I hate is that we have some update circles we can put in. We can see we want it when it's just released, we want general, and so on. So we have some dates and some terms. Those dates and terms are not the same naming or dates that we have on Windows. So it's completely two split up functionalities. When everything is migrated over to PMP, we can control everything with the same ring, with the same update cycles, and manage which resources are being updated when. But yeah, we have the updates, and it's kind of fairly easy. We can do a manual upgrade if there's one. We just do an update and make sure everything is verified by Microsoft. I don't want to click it. Or we can set the upgrades here, that we have the different cycle here, that it goes in and update, validation, general, and final, as I was saying. So it will automatically go in and update. I think it's 15 days for general, meaning that Microsoft are releasing a new app, for example, Teams app upgrade, and then all meeting rooms, Android, that are set to general within after 15 days, automatically get an update within a window that we have defined. So let's say that it's Tuesday, that's day 15, and everybody we don't want update on Tuesday. We want to update, I don't know, Friday afternoon or something like that, or Monday morning, whatever fits the IT service. So we can go in and define that afterwards in configuration profiles. And configuration profiles are, before we moved into to PMP, I think it was really, really great. If we forget about some of the beginners' problems that we have rollout configuration profiles, I think it's brilliant. We create a setup where we have all the settings that we do on the devices, like language settings. Do we want HDMI? What kind of time format on it? Maintenance window. I don't know if you remember, but before we didn't have a restart of any Android. Now we can actually do a weekly or daily restart, and I mean, that's just awesome. We could probably all agree that there shouldn't be no reason for restarting a device, but we can just see if we do a daily restart, the amount of service tickets we get just falls drastically. I mean, and put it like 4 o'clock in the morning, whatever. I mean, it doesn't hurt anyone that is just restarting, and it just not your service desk. But we can also configure in here. And again, also the maintenance windows I was saying. So when there's a new app or firmware release, it will get it within that 15 days, and then we'll find the next maintenance window where it can install that firmware. Then we have the restarts. We have all the different modes that we want to control in, like all the settings that we do directly on the Android device. You can make a profile here and push it out to the device afterwards. Again, that speeds up the process. We don't have this zero-touch permission thing that we were dreaming about, but we still, I mean, when the device is signed in, it registered, we can push out a configuration profile, and within a Microsoft moment, everything is set up, and we don't have to go down to the device and do it. I mean, so far so good. We're getting closer to where we want to go with it. So the configuration profiles are definitely nice to have. One minor thing here is I don't see a lot of people use this one, and that's also coming to PMP because that's a setup on the device. But put in an email, don't put your own. I mean, this is my test environment that we are playing around with. But if a user is on the device and they want to report some problem, it will be shipped to Microsoft. Microsoft get error logs and everything they've configured. But we also have the option to send the same notification and text to IT support email, something like that. So if the users are complaining about something, we will also get notice about it. So, I mean, when the nice user actually report back, we want the information as well. So, I mean, remember to put in an email address because that actually helps you a lot. Then we have all the meeting settings, again, what we can allow, whiteboarding, can you reserve the room and all that part. Do you want to have a direct guest join enabled on all of that, live caption and whatever. Background, that was something that we have been screaming on for, I don't know, 8-10 years. We've just been told it's coming closely and so on. Now it's there and it's in configuration profile. First time I saw it, I thought, why do we need a configuration profile? But it makes perfect sense that we need to upload it some safe where Microsoft can handle it. Because of course, all security people will scream if we have the option to upload directly files into the device. So when I thought about it, I say, that's actually a brilliant way. And it's probably also why we've been waiting a long time for getting backgrounds. We have had that for Windows for years and years. That's the configuration profiles, and we can reassign them. That's a newer button that was coming because it was a pain that if you had a device, if you reset it, you need to remove the configuration profile and sign it again. Now we have the option to reassign. So if I make a change and I click on reassign configuration, all devices that have this profile put on them will get the changes put out. Good. And in the overview of the rooms, we can see which configuration file. I'm just doing my test background, but it's very important that you find a file naming standard or configuration standard, because you started up maybe the IT department for just playing around when you see it. But if you go large scale, find a naming standard that makes sense. Because HQ location 1, I mean, that's easy when you have one, but if you have like 100 locations and begin having different things, time zoning and so on installed, it becomes a nightmare. So remember to do a naming standard that makes sense to you guys. Any questions on the profiles? And we have the same with panels. And just so everybody's aware, panels are the ones that we have outside, where you can check in and do all the stuff and so on. It's also an Android device. And we have the same, not the same configuration profile, but we have the same concept with the configuration profile. We can create different ones and push them out and put backgrounds on and so on. In my opinion, the panels are something that people are missing. They're doing, we need to save some money, so we cut away the panels. But the panels is really value adding a lot into to a meeting room. Just that you can get an overview, you can easily book and you can cancel and so on. And I know that Microsoft had mentioned for many years that soon they'll become apps, because it is just a Teams client. So you can actually push some apps and push out. Some you already can push out today that works. So again, if you're redesigning or looking into it, Teams panels are definitely worth looking into. If you're using another system and say, well, Teams panel cannot really do what I want, another system can. Normally what I try to get the customers to understand, well, then find a manufacturer where they have their own system, but you can reset the device and get into Teams mode. So that makes everything so much easier for everybody that, if you're missing some, because there are some missing in it. You don't have a catering option. You don't have a wire map yet where you can see all your building and which rooms are free and so on. My qualified guess is that we'll see a lot more with places, or we will see something with third-party apps when Microsoft really open up for that. The same behavior we have here is on phones because that's everything with Android on it. So if you are also handling your business Teams phones, same behavior here. And we got it on recording for a session a couple of hours earlier that Microsoft is stating phones will be included in the same migration process as Android MTRs. So that's really good news. In the beginners, are they doing it? Not doing it. So, but that should be a one-to-one migration. So it makes sense to do that. One thing that's not one-to-one, I don't know if you have heard about that Microsoft is keeping username and password on resource accounts. So it will be a key, like certificates that are hash value that we recycle. Phones are not coming in the same speed as MTR Androids, but it will be released at the same time as the migration from TAG to PnP. So there will be two loads that we need to look into. Migration from Teams Admin Center to PnP, and also the option to go passwordless at the same time. So there'll be a lot of stuff for you guys to admin and set up, but it makes perfect sense. Good. Any questions on Teams Admin Center or Legacy Portal? It's going to be great to get out of that one. Good. I don't know. I have the zip devices, and I don't know actually what the status of that one is when they're migrating. I mean, we don't do much with zip devices yet. You okay? Good. So I don't know if you've seen Algo is one of the sponsors up in the exhibition hall. They have some really cool devices where you can get noise and flashes and so on devices. That's pretty much what I have here. Good. We go back to this one. And I think the next one, yeah. So we go directly into the portal. And again, there are many ways to go into the portal. You can either type it in, that one, or we have, while it's loading, we have, if you click down here, Microsoft made a direct jump into PnP from it. Sorry. And also here, if you're on Windows portal, there are many ways to. This new portal is, in the beginning, it was slow. It was updating within 24 hours. A lot of the stuff we were doing was terrible. And sadly, when we hear that, it kind of sticks. I'm really impressed with it now. Of course, some things need to be synced, but I think it's a great portal. I think it really makes sense that Microsoft pushing everything with devices in here. So when we are signing in, we get a list of everything. Are there any problems? Do we have any firmware problems? What's the newest release? We have all the information we need in one place, because one of the biggest challenges is to get informed what's going on in your area. Because if you go into M365, you can see all changes that's going on. I mean, let's face it, none of us can make sense out of it because it's all the products. So here, everything is put together, what's going on with the devices. And also, and this is actually really cool, we have up here, we have a Teams link that every Wednesday from 9 to 10 Pacific time. So you guys in US are better. The one in Europe, we have to stay a little longer up or get a longer work day. But if you join in, there's actually Microsoft people joining into that meeting as well, where you can chat back and forth and so on. And I think it's a big success that you can only ask one question, then you circle around because they actually listen to you. And if you have some suggestions or any questions, you will get advisory. So, I mean, this is the best support solution I've seen so far, where they actually help you and come with constructive advice. And if you run into any problems, say, hey, we need this one. And they actually take notes and say, yeah, that makes sense. We're working on that one and so on. So if you have any questions, just join that Wednesday meeting. I'm really a big fan of that. Then everything we do from here is kind of incident. And we have the setup here. And again, this is my test call, my test setup. So I have a lot of red marks. You saw my home office where I have a lot of different devices. Some are blocked, I mean, I cleaned up for that picture. Normally it's just total chaos and devices all over and so on. So of course I have a lot of disconnected and so on. And it's actually on purpose that I have security. I was starting saying at least 80% are not setting up the system security-wise correctly. And I have this one in here. So the good thing is that right now we will actually get warnings in here if something is not set up correct security-wise. Meaning that we are running on default, I think that one is, default credentials. So that system here is running with SFB as a password. I mean, I'm also doing a lot of teaching for AV integrators, and I'm saying, hey, remember to go up and make sure that somebody's changing this password, because right now it's telling. I mean, I love this one, that it's actually going to say, yeah, here is your 50 new rooms, everything is shiny, and all is just mounted really awesome, and then, yeah, it works and so on, but you just get 50 warnings in here that you have default passwords on it. And we will see that on a lot of different parameters. Connectivity, that's also a good one, comes in and say, hey, something is disconnected. As it is right now, we don't get much information in Android. Everything is based on Windows. But again, that's migrating, as I was saying. So sadly, I cannot show anything about it, but we begin to get a lot of information. So that's one of the first thing we look into. If you have ServiceNow, you can actually get it to integrate into ServiceNow. So if a Windows device is having a problem, it will automatically create a ticket saying, I have a problem. The cool thing about this process here is that it will start by saying, I have a problem, and it will categorize it all what the problem is. If the camera is down, you will not get a higher risk. You'll just get a warning, say, hey, meeting room 1 is missing the camera. You can still have a meeting. I know it's not perfect, but you still have your microphone and speakers and so on. And Microsoft has developed it. This one is actually back to the Skype for Business meeting room place with the Microsoft. You can buy a license from Microsoft for managing all your rooms and so on. So this is where the Pro Portal actually started up. So they're building some mechanism where it's trying to fix itself. So let's say that we're missing a camera that's connected with a USB. It will automatically restart the USB. So it has something that it will try to do to fix itself. If it cannot fix itself, it will go in and update that ServiceNow, or if you have sent email saying, hey, I need your help, I cannot fix this by myself. And you have a regular ticket. If it's more critical, like the microphone, it will be make it as a high alert 1 priority because the meeting room is not working. So, of course, it will try to do some self-diagnostic and figure out, can we fix it, and end up. One mistake I made was that I just put my own email in for this one. And I don't have that many rooms, but I generate a lot of logs, and it creates one when it's starting, it creates one when it's trying to fix it, and it's say one, I need help. And it's also create an email when it's connected. So just that I unplug a device, I'll get 4 emails for that one. Again, if you had 10 different devices, you'll get a lot of emails. So make sure that even if you're playing around with this one, start by having some mailbox where you don't get into a personal one, and start by looking into what kind of information do I actually want to receive mails about. And of course, that can be set up. Then we, we can take that after. Then we have the rooms in here. That's where we have all the configuration and so on. And let's take this one for example. This is a Windows device where we can see there's some hardware in it, and that's actually fair enough because I've unplugged a lot of stuff in it, so no speaker, no cameras, and so on. So it's actually going to tell us on this device what is missing with it. We don't have to go in and do any remote sessions. We just have to look into this, and it tells us everything. What we have under settings is, again, we would prefer to sit in our chair at our desk so we don't have to go down to the console and change anything. But from here, we can actually do all the settings that we do on the device itself. Sign in, meeting option, what do we want, and yeah, everything we can set up here. What kind of direct guest joined, and I've been told I'm not being killed. And if you see here, do you guys see any new stuff that you haven't seen before on the Windows meeting room? Miracast. Ones of you that have been around for a long time remember that Service Hub had Miracast. Microsoft, on the next public release that are coming out, it will support Miracast, meaning that all your Windows MTRs, you can slide in here and say I want Miracast, and you can configure it with a pin or with a first-time pin or never pin, and then you can just Windows K from your PC and put everything up on the MTR system. So really awesome. One thing you need to, for now Windows only. Windows only. It's not a secret that some of the other manufacturers out have certified their devices, and then afterwards they put a little middle software in, and then they have the option for Miracast itself. If you have any of those manufacturers, make sure that you disable that part, and then you can get Miracast. The cool thing about those systems is that some of them also support AirPlay, but you can only have Miracast and AirPlay. So now you absolutely have the option to have AirPlay from manufacturers, middleware, and you have Miracast from Windows on it, and then team sharing, of course, on it. So that makes it a lot more easier. And because, I mean, let's face it, we haven't talked about the HDMI cable, but nobody really loves that one. We are trying to get rid of it, but in some scenarios, we just still have it. And this is, I think now there's no discussion that you don't need the HDMI anymore. So, but yeah, that one is coming. And that's settings that we do here. I mean, if you remember in old days, you need to either go down to the device or we need to go into Skype setting XML, which is a configuration file. We were uploading it into the device, restarting the device, and it was reading the XML file. And if we made any changes, it didn't go right and so on. Now we have all those settings in here. We just click and apply on it. If I'm making any adjustment to it, it will apply and will ask me, do you want to apply it now, or do you want to do it? Everybody is aware that Windows is restarting every night, 2:30, right? Because if you're not, then there's scheduled tasks saying I'm updating the system, and 2:30 it will just restart. And it is a fixed restart, even though you're in meetings, it's just too bad. So if you're sitting in a war room and so on, just remember there's nothing wrong. 2:30 it will just restart, and you need to rejoin the meeting. But you will have the option to do it right now. The device will restart. Or do you want to wait for it to do the restart 2:30? That's really cool as well that we can go and do that. Then we have remote access. Sorry. Remote access is something that has been discussed a lot because what option do you have and how do you security-wise allow it into your organization? Microsoft had made this that we can do it, but if you're in a meeting, you cannot remote into a meeting. And that makes sense. I mean, Microsoft will just get killed privacy-wise if there were option to join in. Some of the other manufacturers have the option that you say, hey, I want to pay an extra license, and I can remote via the management tool into the device, and it will just stand with an OK box for 30 seconds, and then it will join in. We cannot do that with this way from Microsoft, and it totally makes sense. This one might be actually to push it. So I'm using an iPhone as a hotspot and connecting to not an iPhone. That's why it's not working. That's yeah. Yeah. Again, remember what I was saying with the steps. So step one is that Microsoft will migrate everything from TAG to PnP. Step two is trying to make everything one-to-one functionality. So first, they need to do all the migration and so on, and then try to add it up. We've been missing this one, and it's not that it's not possible. A lot of the manufacturer has it as an extra service you can license into. Maybe this one is not as expected. Let's try to connect into this one. If you just go in directly into your PnP, you don't have the option to do a remote access. It's something that you need to give your users access to. So I'll show you when it comes to permissions. I'll show that those are some steps that you need to do. You need to make a check mark as an admin and say, I want this option. And second, which room and who are allowed to do it. So default, that remote is not there. We have two options. You all see that panel now, that it's actually either viewing or viewing and touching. So right now I'm touching and everything works, and on the device, on the physical device, it will change. So it's like I'm clicking back and forth here on it. I have the option to change to different displays. Here it's monitor 1, so if I have a dual monitor set up, there'll just be 2, and I can see everything here. So if somebody's standing and call support, and if they click on it, I'll get real-time updates on it. So it's a beginning on it, and yeah, as you can see here, we have the mirrorcast that are showing when it's enabled and so on. Right now, it shows the meeting room name as it is. Right now, I think that's what it's ended up doing. This display name of the meeting room. Yeah. So again, remember to give your naming on the devices. I'll just do an end session. Again, if I was starting a meeting, because I can start a meeting and click end session, I cannot join it, but after some time, Microsoft will disconnect the meeting with no participant. That's it up here. Good. Then we have the settings, as I was saying. Of course, we cannot go through all of it, but we have the roles in here. And this is in where you can create your own role. So you just create a role. Next. Here at the bottom, you have the option to remote access. So that's where you define it, and then you afterwards in that role you define which users and which devices are included for that role. And again, everything is way more advanced role-based here, so we can configure that this pool of devices in EMEA can be handled by our service partner in EMEA, and this one in APAC can handle that. So we can differentiate all that stuff. Also, if we go in and see on call logs, anything like that, it's like anonymized, so we cannot see the last one, or we can just see, the start of an email address and everything's blacked out. So all those privacy things are in order if we work directly from here. That could be a problem before in Teams Admin Center, that if you have masked everything out, everybody that was Teams Admin could actually see more than they needed to see just for debugging. But there was also digital signage. I don't know if you know that, but that's also released in Windows, coming soon to Android. So if you need any digital signage, it's possible to do that now in the MTRs. We need, in general settings, before we can create those rules, we need to here enable this one, remote access. And that is a check mark that you need. The check mark, create roles, assign some users and rooms to it, and you're good to go to do the rules. And again, this is also where we put on notifications for emailing, log history, push to the contact. I removed my again because I got overloaded with emails. But in here you can add, if you don't have service now, which email to send all error logs and so on. And you can download logs from a period of time if you want. Then we have planning and resource accounts. There's a lot in here, but all for respect to time, just taking whatever highlight. I think that makes perfect sense. Because everybody knows that right now it's an Exchange account, and a default meeting room has not had all the settings that make sense to have as a meeting room. In old times, we had to get hold of the Exchange guys and saying, hey, can you please change, delete body or whatever, all this stuff. Right now, if we have the rights, we can go in on a device in here, and we can actually see how it's configured. And if we have the right access, we can also go in and edit, or we can apply recommendations on it. That will set up Microsoft. And I really think is that if we hover over all the settings, it comes up with a description and say, what does this actually do, and what does Microsoft recommend to do it, or what will happen. For example, delete comments, that one is default on Exchange. And if you do direct guest join, you cannot do that because all the Zoom information or whatever are being deleted. So there are stuff where it makes sense that we need to change the default Exchange and set it up to the default meeting rooms. And we can do that directly from this port as well. So that's also ease up the process. If we are running Autopilot, I have a session tomorrow. So if Autopilot is something you look into to a mass rollout, go join that one. I think I have a link at the end of my presentation. But just for showing, we have the option that if Autopilot is set up correctly, we can also get the MTRs in here, and we can associate them with an account. So as it is right now, we are 99.999% to have a zero-touch provisioning. So what we can do with PMP and Autopilot is that We get the hardware hash, put it in and do all our magic stuff with autopilot associated with an account. And then we just plug in the device, the manufacturer, the integrator are installing it and everything, power and network. Autopilot will come up, do all the upgrades, do all these updates on team settings apps and all the stuff that we normally have problems with, and also sign directly into the account, meaning that we don't have to touch anything with the room. Spoiler alert, I had a customer where we were migrating 45 meeting rooms from one tenant to another one on a location, and let's face it, that would be a pain. We have to go in and reset all devices, wait for him, go in and sign in all that. What we did was move all the hardware hashes to the new tenant, set up autopilot, did a restart, and associated the new accounts with it. And within 1.5 hours when we started each room, they just signed up and the users could just go in and use it because everything. I know there's something we need to adjust afterwards, some drivers and so on. So some of the content made for videos and so cameras and so on. But minor detail compared to how difficult it could be before. But yeah, that's stuff we're setting up here. I'll go more in depth with that in the session tomorrow. Good. Inventory. We can see what's going on. Again, this is my little test thing. We have bring your own device. So you know that if you have a Panacast 50 USB bar that you have in a bring your own device room, you don't you don't know that. I mean, if you have 400 rooms, you have no idea to get an inventory status on it. It is set up like that if 5 different teams PCs are using that one in meetings, it will automatically say, hey, this device is probably in a bring your own device room and be listed in here. I don't have 5 test users in mine, so it's difficult, but it will come here and then you can go in and say, okay, how many BOED rooms do you have? And that's not just stuff like Panacast. We also begin seeing docs, monitors within docs. So we get more and more information in here. So it's easier for you to begin to have an inventory list and say, hey, what do I actually have in my enterprise? So that's also stuff that we can find in here, and we can put it up in location and so on, make it more visible for you guys to work with. Good. Updates, yeah, just for hitting that one. As I mentioned, we have, as I was showing, the 3 different options. When we get to PMP or Windows as is already, we can generate our own rings, so we can define when our package is coming, how many days before we push it out. We can put rooms in different rings and so on. So we can 110% control the updates path and this way things are done. So that's really awesome. I mean, we really miss that from the Android devices. And yeah, you can just add another ring and say how many days before that. So, I mean, my recommendation is normally that we have a couple of rooms close to IT that are being updated as fast as possible. And within the 15 days, 14, whatever fits you guys, but sometime after, minimum 10 days, then you get the general rooms, because then you have some days to catch if you get a bad update or something like that. There's a long time between we have bad updates, but historically Android has been a little shady on it. And then of course you have some of the very important rooms that you can put out, like boardrooms and so on. I mean, let's face it, it doesn't matter if they get the news functionality right away. Again, if, let's say, facilitator or something like that will make sense to have in that boardroom, you can always go in manually and upgrade that one. It's just the auto upgrade that my recommendation is, that close to in a couple of rooms, then 10, 14, 15 days afterwards, everything around it, and then more important rooms 30, 40 days after. And you can configure everything here and define which room should be in what ring and so on. So fairly easy. Any questions or updates? Like the idea? I mean, isn't that a struggle? We all have to get firmware tested, rolling out. How do we do it? We go into tag and said, okay, just mark all of them tonight and update and hope that everything works and so on. That's what we end up doing. I know that that's what we should do, but yeah. No. Good. Then we will have. Good. Then for zero-touch permission, what can do in Android? And one thing that's really strong with Poly HP is that they have the option with your DHCP. I don't know if any of you guys are using HP Poly, but they have the option when the device started, it will get a DHCP option in the IP packets that are pointing directly to HP Poly's management server. And why is that cool? That is because when we plug in the power and the cable, it will automatically go up and talk to management platform. We can do all the settings there. So this is where it makes sense to do something that Microsoft cannot do. They cannot control all the manufacturing startup process. Of course, we don't even have a Teams app on the device yet, or anything other. So that's where it makes sense to go out and say, hey, we still need the manufacturers for staging it. And in this case, it will go up and talk to PolyLens, and it will say, hey, I'm a device. We can see from what side it is. So we can say, yeah, I've set the clock to this one and the language to this one. And by the way, you're a Teams device, and then reboot. You still have to sign in. You cannot get out of that one. Or you still have to make this provisioning code and so on. One could hope, and this is not even verified by Microsoft, but now that we have MDEP, wouldn't it be cool to have autopilot for MDEP so we could do the same? Just be awesome. But yeah, this will help the process. So we can get 90% of zero-touch provisioning on Android devices. I'm not aware of anyone else that are using DHCP the way. I know that Yealing has it as a second option. And guess which two provisioning numbers Yealing are using? Of course, the same one as HP. So, I mean, in a mixed environment, and we have a lot of mixed environment, the battle of which one should go to the management. One could hope that, yeah, they could have taken, I don't know, 151 and 52 or whatever. But yeah, that's some limitation. But I think that's really a super cool way of doing it. Yeah, that was Lens. That's this one. Their management platform is controlling everything, so that could be a little mess. I don't know if any of you guys have HP Poly, but I think that's the biggest negative side of that one is that you have headset, you have USB dongle, you have everything, you have meeting rooms and so on, fill it into one management platform. Of course, you can filter and so on, makes it a little difficult. But still, we can control everything in it, so kind of like that platform. Then, as you mentioned, Yealing, and I really love Yealing's way of doing it. They're really interactive. They're innovative. They are doing a lot of cool stuff. They have a lot of developers, so they can do whatever they want. But their management platform is a little different. It's more split up. It's when you want all the cool functionalities in it, you need to pay a license. Of course, you also need to do that with HP, but you get more out of the box than you do from HP than you do in Yealing. But it's a nice portal. Again, the battle of the DHCP option. They have the option where you can add a serial number and a MAC address so the device will automatically register into the cloud. I'm not sure how they behave on the US cloud because, let's face it, the Chinese are politically somewhere not in Europe and US. So we have somewhere to say we don't want to touch it. I know in Europe is that if you're using the European management server, there are so many restrictions because, I mean, they have to make sure that nothing data goes to China and so on. I think probably it's the same with the US management server. Yeah, you're using it, so it's locked down. Like in Poly, for example, we just say, hey, I want the newest firmware. You just get it. You cannot do that in Yealing because then you will open up that Yealing firmware and you don't want that. So there's some limitation, and it makes sense why they're there, but it just makes a different process for updating stuff like that. Yeah. And then we have a Logitech Sync. In the beginning, I was not a big fan of Logitech Sync. I think they were missing a lot of stuff. I've said some not nice thing about it. It makes more and more sense now. I don't know if any of you guys ever tried to provision in Logitech Sync, but they have a different way of doing it. So when the device is starting up, it asks for a code. And in their management system, everything is built up by location and rooms and so on. So you create the room and say, this one, and you'll get a code. That code the integrator is just typing in. And security-wise, I'm all good with it. It's a one-time code. You type it in. It's only valid for X amount of hours, and you cannot do anything other than the device registering to that room. And then we push configuration. in the beginning, it was limited what we can do. Yeah, up to speed. I mean, when I started with that presentation, there was a big difference on the different manufacturers. Right now, is that we're very close to do too much. Logitech have some add-on license, all of them, of course, add-on license, where you can do more remote management and all that stuff in it. So that one also makes perfect sense. And again, I still think it makes sense to have a manufacturer monitoring tool for provisioning. Afterwards, my opinion is that we should be able to do everything in Microsoft. We lag it a little with Android, but very soon we can do running it, because I mean, the manufacturers are seeing, of course, from their eyes, that saying, yeah, of course you have everything Logitech or Jabra or whatever you're having. No, you have mixed environments. And let's face it, one side in Dubai might go down and buy a setup and install and so on. You need to support it. So we don't have just one vendor. We have that in the perfect world, but we want to configure everything in one place. So support don't have to have sign into 10 different places, learning different systems. Again, so what I'm looking into is, how does the manufacturer system provisioning devices? Then we have audio codes. I know you guys working with audio codes. But I don't think I have that much positive to say on it. Nothing is free. You need on-prem. If you need the free installation, you can buy some cloud. It's a really awesome product on the voice side, but on the meeting room sides, they're lagging behind. I mean, on the voice sides, it's 10 out of 10. But yeah, if nobody's using it. And then we have Jabra Plus. Jabra Plus is really interesting because I was involved in the beginning. Jabra was rebuilding their platform. They had some, at the time being, little legacy, they needed function in the clouds. Jabra Plus is close to be perfect. The idea and thoughts are, but if you're working with any Jabra product, I mean, give it a break. They're working on it. More and more functionality coming. And if you talk nicely with Michael, I'm sure he can help you out with a beta where you get more info and management. Right now, it's a PC that we are provisioning devices out, and we can make firmware rules and a few configuration rules. So they are lagging behind, but yeah, they're getting there. It's a Danish company, so we're working as we can with it. I don't think I mentioned I was from Denmark, but I guess you guys can figure that one out. Lead. Lead was also coming, I think it's 2 years ago, they come up with a redesign of their management system. And they have some functionality that I really love, like they have the touch functionality directly on the devices and so on. So some stuff, separating rooms and so on, but I really love that take control and see and help support-wise. I haven't seen anyone with a need solution as need, but yeah, and again, also provisioning that way. You know, PCs, I guess, yeah. That's what they do in the management, the rollout, configure, not much to say. It's something you pay for, it's something that's built in on the devices. So, yeah, and the same with HP now. Poly HP, of course, we can roll out all the HP devices on that one as well. So, yeah, no really comments on that one. Questions? No. As I was mentioning, I have a session tomorrow about meeting rooms. And autopilot, we'll go in more depth with that one. So if you think zero-touch provisioning on MTRs, something that sounds interesting, I mean, come to my session and I'll show how neat it can be done. And if you look into more management, we have Algo up there as well. They have a session here, May 13, where I'm talking about how to integrate some of their stuff in it. I know it's not meeting room related, but it's something that all of us have some phones that needs a little extra, like voice or flashing and so on. And yeah, we're doing a session where I show how to configure this part of it, and so how easy it is to scan that. Else, evaluation, please do that if you think it's good. If you think it's bad, don't. No. Just let me know. No, I mean, if there's something, let me know. Or else, please just fill out, because we are actually being measured on it. And it's not just this conference. There's a network between conferences. So yeah. Then thank you. And any question? I think that's my QR code for LinkedIn. Yeah. Thanks for your time.